So my opponent claims that by revoking the right to own handguns, there will be less violence and fewer deaths. She mentions the Second Amendment and that it is commonly taken out of context and that its focus is on the military. However, as Americans, we do have a right to bear arms, which is written out as the Second Amendment to our Constitution. Protection from unwarranted bodily harm is a basic right that we all can claim, and law-abiding citizens should be able to possess a weapon appropriate to that end. The right to bear arms is mainly a source of a defense mechanism, and by taking away that right, that basic right to defend ourselves, is unconstitutional. I also found that handguns can be used to actually lessen violence and prevent death. A criminology study found that those attacked by criminals, resistance with a gun appears to be the most effective response in preventing serious injury. The same study also noted that the use of a gun by the victim significantly reduced her chance of being injured. So while armed criminals commit thousands of crimes per year, armed citizens prevent many of those crimes. According to a study by Capel and his colleagues, firearms are used over 500,000 times a year against home invasion burglars. Usually the burglars flee as soon as he finds out that the victim is armed, and therefore no shot is ever fired. Handguns can also be used as a tool to save lives. So during a conference held about gun control after the Sandy Hook mass shooting, a representative speaks out that schools need armed protection to avoid potential school violence. We as a society leave them, our children, every day utterly defenseless. So the National Rifle Association recommends that using school source officials who undergo 40 to 60 hours of training, and that the presence of armed security personnel in a school adds a layer of security, which can ultimately save lives of innocent victims. The National Rifle Association's program offers hope, not only for our schools, but our community as a whole. So my opponent also claims that the laws and policies that we have are not working, but implementing a new policy to ban the private possessions of handguns would directly violate our right as human citizens, and it will not solve high violence rates. So it would encroach on fundamental liberties, the right to keep and bear arms found in the Second Amendment. Laws and policies now allow Americans the right to fight to defend ourselves the way our founding fathers would have wanted us to. Banning handguns would leave Americans defenseless. Also, it is shown by the National Rifle Association deterrent to gun violence that gun control is ineffective at preventing murder and apparently is counterproductive, according to professors and criminologists. Let's see, so there have actually been programs and policies implemented to keep schools and communities safer without violating our rights. So the National Rifle Association has created a school safety task force in order to keep our schools safer from violence. The NRA recommends mental health screening in schools and securing front doors as well as craftsman doors. And also stricter gun control does not mean less violence. So in the early 2000s, the Center for Disease Control and the National Academy of Science reviewed nearly 250 journal articles, 100 books, and 43 government publications, and the Center for Disease Control could not identify any evidence that gun control had reduced murder rates, violent crimes, suicide, or gun accidents. So my opponent claims that different countries have stricter gun laws, which results in lower death rate. However, stricter gun laws does not mean lower murder rates. Actually, in the 1900s, England had no gun laws and the lowest murder rate in Europe. Since 1920, England has adopted more stringent gun restrictions until 1997, when handguns were banned completely. Under these progressive restrictions, English violence progressively increased. Today, England has the highest violent crime rate in Europe, except for Russia. Great Britain's ban on private possessions of handguns has led to a thriving black market on those guns. And let's see, so U.S. Cannot be compared to small nations with minimal populations. And a more comparable country to compare the U.S. to is Russia. And Russia banned handguns in the 1920s, yet Russian murder rates have always exceeded the United States. As the year of 2000, Russian murders were 4 times higher than the United States. So this basically implies that that stricter gun laws do not necessarily correlate with a lower murder rate. And also that...
I'm going to have to cut you off because you've gone 8 minutes.